Another tech topic tonight, because there's another big point that people make when criticizing the tech companies, and that is about ideological bias. In the wake of Google firing James Damore, who wrote a controversial 10-page manifesto about the tech company's ideological echo chamber, Silicon Valley's anti-conservative bias has been brought to the forefront. But what do the actual employees of tech companies think? Over the past few months, the Lincoln Network conducted a survey of Silicon Valley tech workers from companies like Google, Uber, Facebook and Apple, speaking online or in person to over 400 people. Here to break down the results, the co-founder and president of Lincoln Network, Aaron Jin. So tell us what you found in this survey.
So the Lincoln Network started 5 years ago as a desire to organize people who are freedom-minded and lived in Silicon Valley. So this has been sort of a known issue in Silicon Valley of people from the middle to on the more right side of the spectrum felt ostracized in the community. But post James Damore, post highlighting of the concerns of, as y'all mentioned in the previous segments, about technology moving more into the mainstream, into politics, we decided to send out a survey. And at first we did this as a little bit of a joke to a small group of people, and then we woke up the next day, it was hundreds of responses, and people were posting it in the internal chat sessions at Google and at Microsoft. And the responses, I would say, are not surprising, but when you put numbers against it, it's pretty
So let's look at some of those numbers. On ideology, on the sort of basic workplace ideology, what did you find?
We find that overwhelmingly, regardless if you are on the left side of the spectrum or on the right side of the spectrum, people view technology as their technology company as leftist. And
so they all agree with that?
They all agree with that.
Whether you yourself, that's what that graphic shows, whether you yourself self-identify as being on the right or the left, there's a universal agreement that the companies themselves have a liberal culture.
And the highest,
right? Am I getting that right?
And then the highest segment of, like, when you break it down by political ideology, the far left were actually the most likely to say that they were the tech company they worked at was actually very conservative, versus the very conservative said 0.
Right.
So, which is interesting.
You see that on that. So, what about the what did people say about how this affected their ability to do their job?
Yeah, there was when you go from middle of the road to the right side of the spectrum, the overwhelming response was that it does affect their job on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And what's interesting is that even liberals, in some of our one-on-one interviews, they said that post James Damore firing, they even feel scared about having just basic discussions at work. But although it should be said that most people in technology, like the day-to-day workers, average engineers at tech companies, they're not really interested in politics. This is like something that just sort of got added on to Silicon Valley in many ways. But now they definitely fear that it has moved beyond we work at a liberal company to we're now in a moment of rampant intolerance that's going to like hurt innovation, that's going to hurt the ability of companies to have the challenge status quo. That's really what Silicon Valley is about.
And there's another question, kind of following on from that, which you asked, which is about people's that says that they could be themselves at work. What did you find there?
Yeah, very similar to can they bring themselves to work? And what's interesting is that the Valley prides itself on the ability to bring yourself to work. Prides itself on the ability of being tolerant, being able to. That's why we have all these perks, so you can almost view Google as your home.
Right.
But overwhelmingly from centrist to very conservative. I mean, stark numbers to like way over 50% of people said that they could not be themselves at work. They could not bring themselves to work. They couldn't even bring up controversial issues. We have stories of people being fired for bringing a ham sandwich to work at a very vegan company, to being almost fired for having negative performance reviews because you attended the wrong political convention.